Michael Irons and the Great Continent by Nathan Moore. Chapter 7, Kingdom of Fire, Part 2. The arrangement Michael Irons had forged with the Kingdom of Fire's monarch, while he did not strike it without meaningful intent, was made for sentimental consideration. Education of any kind was something he had shunned as a boy, but while his young mind had been preoccupied by strength and bravery, he did make examination of the strongest men and the most powerful leaders history made effort to record. Warriors and generals, monarchs and emperors, whether European or from savage lands forgotten, there were veins of similarity, intentions, opportunities, and outcome. And most young rulers, in particular those built of softer stuff, were very often ground down and reduced to fodder, used to feed the power of a triumphant rival. In truth, Irons had already intended the death of young Karna's brutal uncle. The cunning and powerful man had long since sought greater power, striking bargains with dark forces and gaining demonic patronage. The bloody sacrifices he had made to secure those pledges and promises were alone sufficient to draw the baleful eye and hungry blade of Irons. While what Karna knew of, the brutal, efficient culmination of regicidal efforts executed, only further certified his uncle's irredeemable nature in the eyes of Irons. But part of the tyrant's plan was in so thoroughly dismantling the royal family, instability would threaten the kingdom's very foundations, sowing uncertainty in the hearts of the people at large. In such a state, everyone, from the lowest peasant to those in the halls of power, would seize upon whatever source of strength was presented. The tyrant had set up his weak nephew Karna to fail within this role, so that he himself might step up into the breach. While Irons had a deep and unremitting disdain for politics, even he was well aware that should he slay the demon-aided tyrant without consideration, then Karna, already positioned for failure, would have even further pressures and failures. The dynasty of this kingdom would falter, plunging the people into a period of uncertainty and strife, perhaps even chaos and civil war. However, given this kingdom's predilection for stubborn strength and dogged resolve, these cultural elements were deeply inscribed into the very bones of her people, each person needing only the correct motive and direction in order to ignite these instincts. This is what Irons intended to inspire in Karna, so the young man might gain some steel in his spine. Empathetic individuals were, after all, generally better motivated by notions of responsibility to others. Seizing the crown for the sake of his people, rather than for vengeance or even to save his own neck, would likely help him to hold the breach where his uncle wished for it to collapse. And when it was shown to hold, Irons would strike the wicked plotter down. In the meantime, there were other tasks to occupy Irons, tertiary considerations to support the final goal's achievement. Other evil in need of shot and steel. At the moment, he lurked upon the night-shrouded rooftops of a palatial home some distance from the kingdom's capital and its dominant ziggurat. This particular residence belonged to one of the would-be tyrant's closest confidants, a wizened old man learned in what Europe would most closely label occult. Though he had become so steeped in those dark mysteries, Irons felt the descriptor inadequate. Having chosen a path that required he bide time, Irons was able to, over the course of several nights, carefully discover and painstakingly identify the various traps, curses, hexes, wards, and even guardian spirits the old man had erected and conjured over a lengthy, learned lifetime. Now, finally, all was in readiness, and direct action could occur. On his chosen course, physical traps had their triggers removed, sacred circles were broken or circumvented, dark brands and hidden gates obscured or dispelled. The process was slow and painstaking. Finally, when the half-moon was at its zenith, did Irons lurk within the occultist's inner sanctum, a dark library and repository for his studies, hiding also a secret door leading down into a place of loathsome experimentation. As expected for the position of the moon in the late hour, Irons found the occultist hunched in a chair before a desk cluttered with books and charts, a charcoal writing instrument scratching some manner of emblem or design. Despite this vulnerability, Irons remained in the shadows, cold blue eyes fixed, body still, ready to wait. From a shadow upon the wall, away from the old man, a mouth of shark-like teeth appeared in a grin. Irons, expecting this, motioned toward the door and preceded the summoned creature from the room, then from the vast manor and back into the night. "I have come to kill your master," Irons announced, direct, unperturbed. "And I am compelled to not allow this." The grinning shadow smiled, remaining unilluminated despite the moonlight, its precise form still obscured. "Although I believe such action is not in my own interest. The chaos the Lord of Flies sows disallows comradeship. Few demons banished from here find friends within the pit." "I weep for thee," Irons mocked, and he raised the onyx and ivory rosary wound around his gloved left hand. "And yet you did not banish me, though you knew I was present," the agitated fiend quickly pointed. "Perhaps there is a bargain you wish for? Information about the plans of he who binds me." Irons began to close the distance, his thin lips curling, disdainful. "I merely wished the old man unalerted." With alacrity, Irons grasped the demon entity's face with his rosary-wrapped hand and spoke words of exorcism. Without even the need for holy water or anointed oils, the fiend of smoke shattered without a sound and was banished, leaving Irons somewhat bewildered that the matter was so swiftly settled. Soon, Irons was again within the study, glaring down upon the manor's master once more. He looked about, almost absently, for snares or hexes overlooked, perhaps expecting the old man to infer his presence. This did not occur. "I expected," began Irons, and the aged figure, startled with such violence, Irons reflexively recoiled, as if the man himself were the sprung trap. But it was not so. The old man made an effort to contain his outburst, but the wildness of his eyes and the heaviness of his breaths said he remained thoroughly agitated. There was an egotism in those dark eyes, and a deep pride more astonished than hurt at its wounding, a strange distinction Irons often found in those who believed themselves untouchable, and he did so enjoy proving them to be otherwise. "I expected," Irons tried again, "more." The wounds within his pride were swallowed by rising temper, and the old occultist grandly drew himself up from his chair with slow, offended fury, obviously intending to cow Irons. Then, in a strong if somewhat reedy tone, he began to rattle off an invocation of some manner, and cast at the invader what seemed to be bone dust. Unimpressed, Irons stepped back from the brief billow, avoiding most of the powder for the sake of his black garments, and found himself needing to make another step as the old man advanced, making gestures and intonations of spirit binding. Now almost embarrassed, Irons grimaced, moved forward, and with one brief motion of his hand pushed the old man back into his chair. Surprise grew on his face once more, and this time the wounds upon his pride seemed more considered. "Have you begun to grasp how small your pond is?" wondered Irons. "Surely you did not think the forces you courted would bestow upon you actual power." A shame, though. He looked over the stacks of parchment and books and grimoires. "I am certain there is worth to this collection, but for anyone without greater knowledge to provide it organization and context, it would be an impenetrable forest." "That is what it was for you, yes? Years, decades of searching, exploration, theorizing, gaining power only over those with no more understanding than yourself. And suddenly there appeared a real monster." Irons drew his greatsword into his right hand. "I have been in your home before, to scout and disable your traps. I found your dungeon. I saw what you have done there, but I can only guess for how long and to what extent. For just the most recent experiment, I would kill you. For obliging me to kill what was there, I would kill you slowly. But for allowing it to retain enough of its mind to beg for death, the blue eyes of Michael Irons were as cold and unforgiving as the cosmos. For that, you will burn.